What's going on, everyone? I'm just a standard, typical American here today to learn and react to 10 things you didn't know about Norway. This will be especially applicable to me because I don't know anything about Norway. I know a few things now that I've reacted to a couple things about Norway's history and economic status and power and a couple things like that, but I think today is a good time to just have this video where I don't quite know what's coming. It's just 10 random things about Norway. I think that's good for me, just as sheer exposure to the Norwegian culture. It's going to be kind of a variety of things that I've just never seen. So that actually sounds kind of fun and kind of cool. So yeah, with that being said, let's check it out.
Ignorance with 10 things you didn't know about Norway. The cost of living in Norway is known to be one of the highest in the world. Oslo is specifically recognized in a variety of surveys as...
I actually didn't realize that. The cost of living in Norway is one of the highest on the planet. I'd like to know what the average Norwegian is earning and kind of more about how much poverty there is before making any judgment on that. Just because the cost of living is very high, it still could mean that the society as a majority lives very well and comfortably if everyone's rich. So I actually don't know what to think about that.
being one of the most expensive cities in the world. Mercer's cost of living survey for 2015 ranked Oslo as the 38th most expensive city in the world out of 207 cities, ranking higher than Paris, Melbourne, and Washington, D.C.
Wow. More expensive than Washington, Paris, Melbourne? That would certainly... I didn't quite appreciate the gravity of how expensive stuff is in Norway. I wonder why that is.
While Norwegians themselves earn high salaries and the high tax burden pays for their well-functioning welfare system, it cannot be denied that Norway is an expensive place to live or even visit. So if you ever want to...
So he kind of glossed over it there, but it seems like, from a little of what I've gathered, on average, Norwegians have good economic status. They have money. People are pretty well off. I don't know any hard statistics or anything. I'm kind of generalizing here. And apparently the taxes go to a welfare system, which hopefully does a good job of taking care of any of those individuals who are not in the upper earnings brackets. So it actually kind of seems pretty nice.
Experience paying something like $15 for a beer, then you might want to head on over to Oslo to get that experience. Despite the high cost of living, there's also a very high standard of living, and most Norwegians end up doing quite well in life, whether they earn a tremendous amount of money or not.
Yeah, I guess, you know, a side effect of having one of the most expensive cities on Earth and countries is that when people come there on vacation there, or there are tourists there, they're going to spend lots of money and help the Norwegian economy even more. So, yeah, by the sound of it, in general, Norway is pretty financially stable, actually doing quite well.
Norway has one huge advantage compared to other Nordic countries.
Right.
Oil wealth. In the 1960s, the Norwegian government seized control over the NCS, or Norwegian Continental Shelf, in the hopes of taking advantage of possible oil reserves that might be there, and take advantage they did.
See, this I was a little aware of. I forget where I heard about this fact, but I was recently made aware, that Norway does quite well in terms of oil production, and how that has a massive effect on their prospering economy. So, very interesting.
The government spent a great deal of money on exploration in an effort to find the juicy oil spots. And once they did, the black gold started to flow, and the rest is history. One interesting thing the Norwegian government has done, in contrast to many other countries with access to large quantities of oil, is to put money earned via the oil away in terms of savings. In 1990, the Norwegian government set up a sovereign oil fund, the Government Pension Fund Global.
Yes, I've heard. I heard about this as well. The what are we calling it exactly? The Global Sovereign Oil Fund?
Quantities of oil is to put money earned via the oil away in terms of savings. In 1990, the Norwegian government set up a sovereign oil fund.
Sovereign oil fund. Yes, where it's very smart, very forward-looking, isn't it? For Norway to take all of this money that they're generating through their oil production and put it into like what I understand is a giant government financial fund. Almost like a huge trust fund or mutual fund for investing the nation's money just to become more rich. So yeah, it's the best of both worlds.
The government pension fund Global as a place to store the profits from its oil riches and save for future generations. The fund is largely financed by high oil taxes. Oil companies are taxed up to a whopping 78% of their profits from Norway oil, and the government only spends 4% of the fund's assets per year.
Wow, 78% of oil profit goes into this to the government, and then most of that into this fund. My God, that's it's actually really cool. And it's good to know that the Norwegian government is not just taking that money and paying their politicians more or spending it on things that aren't needed. Sure, they spend it when it's needed, but rather than frivolously throw away cash that you're generating, the government invests it for the whole country, a fund, an oil fund. That is so brilliant. I'm shocked more countries don't do that, but it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lack of corruption and a lot of discipline to be reasonable and responsible with all that money. So that's very admirable, very cool.
Today, Norway has put away over $1 trillion in money saved for emergencies and future generations.
$1 trillion saved. The United States is like $50 trillion in debt to the world. And then you got Norway that's saved up $1 trillion. That's insane. That's insane in the best way possible. Wow.
And the oil seems to continue to be flowing, so there is no sign of this thrift disappearing.
Wow.
The Kalmar Union, called Kalmarunionen in Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish, was a political union that from 1397 to 1523 formed under a single monarch that joined the three kingdoms of Denmark, Sweden, as well as Finland and Norway, together with the Norwegian territories of Iceland, Greenland, the Faroe Islands, and the Northern Isles. The union was not entirely uninterrupted, and there were several short breaks. Legally, the countries remained separate sovereign states, but with their domestic and foreign policies being directed by a common monarch.
Yeah. I actually just did a video before this one about the Nordic Council, which this very much reminds me of and may have been the precursor to. All of the Nordic countries kind of working together on policy. It's very productive. Very good.
The driving force behind its formation was to block German expansion northward into the Baltic region. And conversely, the main reason for its failure to survive was the perpetual struggle between the monarch, who wanted a strong unified state, and a Swedish and Danish nobility, which did not. Diverging interests gave rise to conflicts that would hamper the union in several intervals. From the 1430s until its final and definitive breakup in 1523, when Gustav Vasa became King of Sweden, Norway continued to remain a part of the realm Denmark-Norway until the Oldenburg dynasty for nearly 3 centuries, until...
Yeah, I've heard... Some of this is ringing a bell for me because I did do a little brief history of Norway and another reaction, so I am aware to some extent of these past relationships between the Scandinavian and Nordic countries. Very interesting history, by the way.
Dissolution in 1814. The Norwegian language conflict, called Språkstriden in Norwegian, refers...
Språkstriden. I swear, Norwegian language is one of the most difficult and nuanced languages I could ever try to pronounce. I can clearly hear all sorts of little enunciations and little subtle ways that the words are being pronounced, and I just can't replicate it because it's so fine, so difficult.
To an ongoing controversy within Norwegian culture and politics related to written versions of the Norwegian language. From the 16th to the 19th centuries, Danish was the standard written language of Norway due to Danish rule as a consequence of the Kalmar Union. As a result, the development of modern written Norwegian has been subject to controversy related to nationalism, rural versus urban, Norway's literary history, dialect versus standard language, spelling reforms, and orthography. Thus, in contrast to something akin to Hochdeutsch of Germany, Norwegian actually has two official standard variants of Norwegian. Bokmål is one variety that can be regarded
two versions of Norwegian. Yeah, I have no chance here.
as more traditional, older, and conservative, and is sometimes viewed as Norwegianized Danish and new.
Bokmål. So there's been a divide in the language a bit. A diversification resulting from Old Danish relationship in Norway. So some aspects of the Norwegian language has retained that Danish ancestry to it, and the other one, what?
Nynorsk is regarded as a
Nynorsk?
Pure form of Norwegian, more
so Nynorsk,
Norwegianized Danish, and Nynorsk is
Nynorsk. Yeah, I can't hit every syllable there. I know I'm not quite saying it right. This is more of the pure Norwegian, the Norwegians' Norwegian, if you will. Interesting.
Regarded as a pure form of Norwegian, more Norwegian than Danish, and has a more nationalistic flavor to it.
So do Norwegians actually care about this? Or is it just a geographical thing? You may speak one, you may speak the other based on where you live in Norway? And do Norwegians find the Danish version to be worse, for lack of a better word? Do they prefer the Norwegian version, or is it just kind of a whatever works thing, this is just part of our culture kind of angle?
Both variants are used, but the variety tends to be found mostly in the written language. Surveys from the early 2000s indicated that upwards of 86.3% of Norwegians use bokmål as their primary means of written communication, with the remainder using nynorsk or combination of the two. Although historically there had been a great deal of
So most do not use Nynorsk? I have to listen to this again.
0.3% of Norwegians is from the early 2000s indicated that upwards of 86.3% of Norwegians use bokmål as their
83% use bokmål for writing. I wouldn't have expected that. That's the version that has Danish as a part of it. Interesting.
Their primary means of written communication, with the remainder using nynorsk or combination of the two. Although historically there had been a great deal of tension concerning the matter, the age of conflict has long passed.
Okay, I was wondering about this. Like, do modern Norwegians actually care about this? Is what I was wondering. It sounds like it's just a go with the flow kind of thing at this point.
The differences in the language are more a curiosity to most than a point of contention to be fought over. These days, everyone enjoys skiing. But that might not be true had the Norwegians not founded the sport and created the tools to help people enjoy it.
You know, I never knew that. Skiing was invented in Norway? It makes sense. There appears to be a lot of snow. And when I do pay attention to the Olympics, that's one of the only times I ever have Norway come up in American popular culture is with winter events. I didn't remember that it was quite skiing, but it makes a lot of sense now. Wow, what the heck? Invented skiing? That's a trivia question for you.
The word ski originally comes from the Old Norse skith, which means split piece of wood or firewood. This, of course, makes sense, given the very northern climate and abundance of snow in the country. Every time an American, Italian, or German skis down a slope enjoying this winter sport, they ultimately have to thank the Norwegians for developing the ski and the activity associated with it.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Norway, for inventing skiing. Skied. Although I do snowboard more than I ski. I never get around to skiing or snowboarding, maybe once a year, maybe. And if I do, I snowboard. But I've always wanted to try to ski. but I will always think of Norway when I do from now on.
If you've become familiar with Scandinavian food and like it, then Norwegian food will not disappoint you. Salmon is a staple food when it comes to the Norwegian diet, with the country's long coastline and many fjords producing ample amounts of this fish. Due to the colder temperatures, the fish grow over a longer period of time, allowing them to develop a deeper and richer flavor.
You know, salmon is pretty much I think it's pretty expensive in America. It's almost a delicacy. Fish is expensive in America, so this is quite a special treat to well, I guess to Norwegians it's somewhat common, which is pretty interesting. I guess when you're living right there by the water, that makes all the difference.
Meat also makes up a number of popular Norwegian delicacies, such as kjøttboller or kjøttkaker.
Kjøttkaker.
These can be described as a different version of Swedish meatballs, and those with a sweet tooth.
I've heard of Swedish meatballs. I don't know what that is, though, but I've heard of that. Hold on. Swedish meatballs. I've heard of this. What makes it a Swedish meatball? Oh, here we go. There's cream. What is the meat involved here, though? The sauce. No, I don't want to know about the sauce. Smaller in size. Ground pork and beef. Okay, just kind of a normal meatball. Huh. Sounds good. It's got me kind of hungry now.
Can satisfy their cravings with krumkake.
Krumkake. There's a lot of K sounds that you don't get in English very often. That's some of the difficulty I'm having. Krumkake.
Translated as curved or crooked cake. Krumkake consists of paper-thin rolls of a waffle-like pancake, which are then filled with whipped cream or any other desired filling.
That looks good. Never heard of this. Looks delicious, though. Americans are down anytime for a dessert. Anytime. You say when and where, and we are down to have some dessert. So the krumkake looks quite good.
Perhaps the geological phenomenon most associated with Norway, the fjord itself, is a Norwegian word, which...
Oh, yeah, I recently, through another video, was reminded about the existence of fjords. And I had to look up what they are. And I still don't quite understand what a fjord makes a fjord. Maybe this can tell me, though.
Of course, makes sense, given the wide-scale presence of these majestic structures. A fjord is a long, narrow inlet with steep sides or cliffs created by glacial erosion. A fjord is formed when a glacier cuts a U-shaped valley by ice segregation and abrasion of the surrounding bedrock. Glacial melting is accompanied by the rebounding of Earth's crust as the ice load and eroded sediment is removed. The foundations of fjords often reach many thousands of feet.
Wow, look at this. Yeah, how cool would it be to live in a country with lots of these fjords going on? That is beautiful. That is awesome. My God, I could just look at this photo, but I won't. I have more things to learn about Norway.
Below sea level. For example, Sonja Fjord, which is the largest and most well-known fjord in Norway, as well as the second longest one on Earth, extends a whopping 4,265 feet below sea level.
There's just a bunch of natural wonders in Norway. Why's Norway gotta have everything? They're rich and healthy and have beautiful fjords. Come on, you can't have it all. What the heck?
Within the waters between fjords, there exists an abundance of fish, such as salmon and mackerel, and opportunities to see whales.
Salmon.
Regardless, the fjord is part of the Norwegian heritage and a testament to the beauty of the land and its people. Called Leirsdal-tunnelen in Norwegian. This tunnel is the longest tunnel ever constructed in the world.
What? What? The longest tunnel in the world? I had no idea about this. This is rather interesting. It'd honestly be kind of terrifying. I think most Americans have an irrational fear of tunnels. That's a very common fear, like being in a cave or a tunnel with no way out. It's just rock. Like it's going to collapse on you or you'll get stuck in there. Some kind of fear based on that. But if you're at the biggest tunnel on Earth, you gotta go in it. That's just amazing.
Running a staggering 15.3 miles from start to finish.
That'd be cool to like run. If you're a runner, biker, run through that tunnel. Get your 15-mile run in. My
The
goodness.
tunnel does not have emergency exits. In
Yeah.
case of accidents and or fire, many safety precautions have been taken. There are
Oh, okay.
emergency phones marked SOS every 820 feet, which
That's actually a nice feature. That's pretty cool.
can contact the police, fire departments, and hospitals. Fire extinguishers have been placed every 410 feet, and high air quality in the tunnel is achieved two ways: ventilation and purification.
Oh, there's ventilation as well? I just thought we were talking about a big tunnel, and that was kind of the end of it. We got vents, we got phones, emergency services. Norway thinks of everything, man. Wow.
And this keeps the tunnel operating at maximum performance.
I feel like in America, we just have a giant tunnel, and it'd be like, good luck. If you get lost in there, you're gone. It's just a tunnel full of skeletons or something. If you gave Americans a crack at it, sadly.
For such a small total population, which barely goes over 5 million people, a surprising percentage of that population is in fact not Norwegian in origin.
Really? The majority of people living in Norway are not Norwegian? That's something I had no idea.
Currently making up 16.3% of the population.
Oh,
In fact, not Norwegian in origin. Currently making up 16.3% of the population. The five largest immigrant groups in Norway are, in order, Polish, Lithuanian, Swedish, Somali, and Pakistani.
Okay.
This is a huge change from previous decades, as in 1992,
okay. This is kind of a more recent phenomenon.
the immigrant population in Norway was 183,000 people, 4.3% of the total population.
So it greatly increased from about 4% to like 14, 16% in the course of a few years recently, in the last few decades. Interesting. I mean, it's such a beautiful place. Such a nice place to live by the sound of it. I can see why you'd have lots of people migrating there.
At the beginning of 2015, this number had risen to 815,000, or 15.6% of the total population. Immigration to Norway has increased drastically in recent years, with net immigration exceeding 40,000. Whether or not this will be a long-term benefit to Norway remains to be seen. Depending on the year of the survey taken and the study done, Norway is the most gender-equal society on Earth. But what
Really?
does it actually mean?
Wait, is that on purpose? Or is that can you really control that? Or is that just by random chance that it happens to be the most gender equal? That's cool. It's a cool fact, but so some societies are what, 51% male and 49%? Maybe a little more than that, and Norway happens to be 50-50. It can't be a huge difference than the rest of the world, right? Right?
Well, on average, for every $1 a woman earned in Norway, a man earned $1.27, which
Oh, we're not talking about population. We're talking about gender equal in terms of opportunity and making money and status and like opportunity wise, the most gender equal. I was like, I mean, most places have to be 50-50, pretty much, men and women. Okay, I get it. Forgive me.
translates to an average annual salary equaling about $57,856 for women and $73,257 for men.
Still a bit of a discrepancy, honestly.
Adjusted, of course, for more hours worked by men. Just slightly under 76% of Norwegian women are part of the national labor market, while Norwegian men's participation is 80%, far better than most other countries. And women's political participation is greater than in most countries, too. Overall, being a woman in Norway is not a bad deal, and maybe even better than being a man.
Really? Yeah, I feel like women aren't represented in American politics by probably a huge factor. Seems like it's much more male-based. So that's cool that Norway, I don't know what they've done to accomplish all this. Maybe just by being a cool place with lots of opportunity and tolerance has achieved such a wonderful, status for their population.
For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like.
Okay, I think that's the end of it. That was a good list. Top lists. Very nice. I give that a like for sure. Okay, that was very interesting. And it accomplished basically exactly what I had hoped. Just to let me dip my toes further into Norway culture. I need as much exposure as I can get. Just tell me random things about Norway, and slowly but surely I will get a grasp of it. I don't know how long it'll take me to be able to pronounce Norwegian words better, more accurately, once I unlock my sleeping jaw muscles that pronounce k sounds and things like that. But anyway, I digress a little bit. This was a very nice list. Some very, very beautiful things about the Norwegian culture, and like the geography, and just how Norway does a lot of things. Seems quite nice. And as a byproduct, it sounds like Norway is doing very well just on the global stage as far as being a country in all these different aspects of economic and social and political, how you can run things and how the outcomes can be. Everything just always sounds like it's so great. Like, is this too good to be true? What's going on here? This is amazing. Anyway, that was a very interesting video. I hope you found this video interesting as well. If you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway, news and culture, things I never knew before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.